Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome one and all, you're listening to What on Earth is Happening right here on Republic Broadcasting. I'm your host Mark Passio, my website whatonearthishappening.com. The network's website, republicbroadcasting.org. Today is Saturday, February 28th, 2015. This show is live every Saturday evening from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. Eastern Time. That's 9 p.m. to midnight Central Time. We have a good show lined up for you here today. I'm going to kind of give some final thoughts on the topic that I've been covering over the last many weeks about the Neo-Feminism Agenda. And I'm also going to be taking your calls a little bit later in the show. Want to get kind of your whole take on, the topics that I covered during that segment, during that series, I guess you could say. And, see if people have any comments or questions or concerns that they want to pose. And anything else that you want to bring up regarding that topic, or really anything else that you want to talk about. But, if I could get some comments and questions and concerns about the recent material that I've been covering, I'd kind of like to go in that direction. So the toll-free number to join us is 800-313-9443. Once again, the toll-free number to join us here on What on Earth is Happening, 800-313-9443. I am also going to be bringing Bob Tuskin onto the show briefly to talk about the Free Your Mind Conference. The Free Your Mind 3 Conference is coming up April 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2015. It's racing toward us. It's coming up in really just over a month. It's going to be taking place just outside of Philadelphia this year in Langhorne, Pennsylvania at the Sheraton Bucks County Hotel at 400 North Oxford Valley Road in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. The speakers booked for the Free Your Mind 3 conference: Bob Tuskin, Clint Richardson, Curtis the Illuminated One Davis, Dennis McKenna, Derek Brose, Ed Fortune, the New Jersey Weed Man, Frater X, Freeman, Fritz Springmeyer, Jay Parker, Janice Barcelo, John Bush, John Vibes, Josie the Outlaw Wales, Laura Eisenhower, Lennon Honor, Luke Rudkowski, Mark Devlin, myself, Mark Passio, Stuart Swerdlow, and the Anti-Media Panel. There will also be a panel discussion group, and there will be an open mic night at the end of each night. An all-weekend pass for the Free Your Mind 3 conference, only $150. You can use coupon code Passio for $15 off your purchase of any tickets of $100 or more, and that offer ends this evening. Do we have Bob Tuskin on the line with us? Bob, are you with us?
Yo, Mark, what's going on, dude?
Hey, Bob. Bob's been really the main organizer, along with John Vibes, of the Free Your Mind Conference this year, and these guys have just been doing a phenomenal job getting the conference together, organizing everything, booking it at a great venue, and booking an all-star lineup of speakers. Bob, I want you to tell the listening audience anything else that you want them to know about Free Your Mind, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, Mark, I appreciate it. We are trying to bring awareness to this amazing event that has really taken things to the next level. In the last few years we've been doing this, we've found that being at an event like this is really something special. We can all watch these videos online. We can learn about this information through reading books. But when you're there in person at these events, sharing and learning and building community, there's something that is really, really awesome about that. And I just can't begin to say enough. Mark, the promo codes that we've been doing this year.
Yes.
It's gimmicky, it's commercial, but it's geared to try to get people to buy in advance. We need help with the financial stuff, man. The Federal Reserve notes make these conferences happen. The information and the people at the end of the day are what make it happen, but ultimately we have to fly people in, we got to pay for the venue, da-da-da-da-da. So these little promo codes like Passio, which ends tonight, this is to try to encourage you to just go ahead and get that ticket. Get that ticket now. Please help us out. We have a lot going for this event. We have a lot on it. A lot of people are depending on your help to get this information out there. And again, as Mark said, tonight will be the last night for the promo code Passio. It's the end of the month. We've been running it all month. If you go to freeyourmindconference.com and you enter coupon code Passio, you'll save $15 on your all-weekend pass to the conference. And I urge you to take us up on that. It's not going to get any cheaper. We're not going to raise the price from the $150 that it's at, Mark. I've decided to keep it at that price to try to continue to make it affordable. And also, Mark, I want to point out that we have been really, really careful not to turn anyone away. So if somebody out there is listening right now and you just absolutely can't afford the $150, but yet you're local, contact me. We'll make it happen. We want to get as many people in there as possible. Obviously, if we sell out, we only have limited seating. But obviously, if we sell out, we're going to have to, turn people away. But if you want to come, we'll work something out. Whether we get a student rate for you, whether we figure out something, I don't really care. Ultimately, if we could make this conference free, we would. We really would. So I just want to make that clear to anybody listening who's on the fence, who might not have all of the money there. Mark, I had a guy contact me, and he's making payments on the ticket. He's paying a little bit every so often just to come to the conference, and I appreciate that. And anybody who said, "Hey, I absolutely can't afford this," we haven't turned anyone away. So that being said, I don't want to deter people from spending the full amount on the ticket. But at the same time, I just want to make it clear that this isn't an infomercial. This isn't a revenue generator. This is organically happening for a reason.
That's right.
And I think that's straight up, man. I'm not going to bend, and get all salesy with this and do all that BS. I'm going to tell it like it is, like we always do, Mark.
It's just down-to-earth people, putting on this event. It's down-to-earth speakers who really want to see the world change for the better that are being part of this event. And, you as an organizer and your organizational crew is willing to work with the people, to make this be as great of an event as it can be. And, I think the last two were testimonials to the hard work of the organizing staff and the speakers that were all-star speakers that were a part of it. And I think this year is going to not only be no exception to that, I think it's going to probably be even bigger and better. Tell people a little bit about the venue as you guys got it. I mean, this is a real step up from the former venues, and it's going to be held in a bigger location, and it's kind of an upscale location.
Yeah, it's an upscale location that, it's not that it's upscale, Mark. The vanity of it all is not important to us. It's that it's going to be comfortable for this space, this meeting space that we find to be so important. And it's going to fit up to 600 people. And we're hoping to get that many people in the door. So it's at the Sheridan Bucks County, just outside of Philadelphia. It's a convenient location for most people in the Northeast. You can get there. It's right off 95. It's no hassle. You can stay at the hotel if you like, which makes it real convenient. And we do have a block rate for anybody attending the conference.
This is the first time the Free Your Mind conference has been held in a hotel, and so it's the first time that people can actually stay at the venue itself, at the actual location of the conference, which makes it very convenient.
I think it's not only going to make it convenient, but I think that's also going to make it to be even more of a community, if you will. There's going to be more camaraderie, because when you room with people and
people will be staying at the same place, conversations will be started, friendships will be made. Yeah. Exactly.
So I think it's going to be really cool in that regard, just the camaraderie of it all.
I agree.
Ultimately, I really do suggest that if you can, stay at the Sheridan Bucks County where the event will be. Let them know that you're going to be at the Free Your Mind conference so that they can give you the discount on your hotel room there. They have a Free Your Mind conference discount. We have the phone number up at freeyourmindconference.com. But if that hotel's full, which it's seeming like it may be full, which is awesome, there's tons of other hotels in the area. There's tons of restaurants in the area and all that fun stuff. In fact, I'm going to be up there next week to check it out for the first time. We had a lot of people go and check it out for me and kind of scope it out, but I have to get up there and start getting ready here, because in a blink of an eye, Mark, this conference is going to be here. It's right around the corner, and that's why we really need to promote it. Listen, if you can't come and you want to just help out, promote the link. Share it on Facebook. Share it on, I know we hate Facebook, but use these platforms for some good. Use these platforms to get the word out. Share the videos. Tell people about it. Word of mouth. Email your email list. The list of things that you can do to help make this as great as it possibly can be is endless. And I want you to kind of fill in the blanks. And if anybody wants to reach out to us, if you have any questions or concerns, info@thefreeyourmindconference.com. So actually, it's info@freeyourmindconference.com. No, the info@freeyourmindconference.com. And Mark, I know you're hard at work with your talk this year, right?
Absolutely. I'm going to be giving a talk called The Cult of Ultimate Evil, Order Followers, and the Destruction of the Sacred Feminine. And it is going to really be a hardcore expose of what order following is all about, how it's really a religious belief system, and it constitutes the members of the order followers worldwide really constitute a worldwide cult that's putting the world into bondage and slavery, and until they decide to quit that position, to quit that form of action in their lives and not go along with this control system of its demands upon them, nothing is going to change. And so these are the people who I think we ultimately need to reach in the long term, and that's what my presentation is going to be kind of geared to speaking to.
I'm really looking forward to that. I gave a little bit of a sample of my talk on Freeman's show the other night, Mark. I'm going to be giving a talk on scarcity-based mind control, and of course the solution.
Excellent topic, definitely.
Found in abundance. Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty important talk. I'm looking forward to fleshing out some ideas that I think are solution-oriented. We have to look at the root of the manipulation, but at the same time figure out what solutions we can utilize to get us out of the paradigm that we're in. So I hope to offer both an informative topic that takes on the heart of the mind control, the essence of mind control, in my opinion, and also take a closer look at how do we break beyond that? How do we free our minds? There you go.
It's largely, this whole conference, the tagline for it is a conference on consciousness, mind control, and the occult. It's a conference about learning who we really, truly are. That's the consciousness side of it. This is about the true nature of reality, the true nature of the human being, who we really deeply are inside, and how we're all one insofar as that we're all in the same situation together here on Earth regarding human freedom. And then there's the mind control part of it. That's making people be exposed to and aware of the problem. It's the whistleblower aspect of it. You're going to come out with all these different methodologies that are being used against us to keep us down and suppressed and keep the population in ignorance. And then there's, the part of it that looks at the occult, how there's this kind of breakaway, civilization of quote-unquote elites that, is basically trying to wage a eugenics operation against the public. And these are the occult orders. These are the mystery traditions of old that went rogue and took that knowledge and secreted it away, hid it, and are using it as a power advantage over the people who remain ignorant of that information called the occult, the knowledge of, both the human psyche and how it works and how it may be manipulated or steered, and the knowledge of natural law, the knowledge of the physical sciences and the spiritual sciences, if you will, the laws that govern the consequences of behavior, of behavioral choice. So all of these types of things will be discussed at the Free Your Mind Conference. You'll see a wide variety of speakers from all different backgrounds, and they'll be talking on a vast array of topics. This isn't like a conference that is kind of limited to one specific narrow-minded focus or scope. It's a very wide range of topics, and it's kind of designed to just open people's minds up to the possibilities that are out there, and let them make up their own mind. Do you want to say something regarding that?
No, I mean, I just want to reiterate that it truly is an eclectic group of speakers, and obviously there are overlapping themes amongst all the different talks. But it really is a look at something from several perspectives. This year we're having Dennis McKenna join us, who's going to offer some interesting insight on entheogens, and he and I were chatting the other day, and he's got some really powerful stuff that we need to look at that hasn't really been brought forth in a conference yet. So there's a lot of original thoughts. We just had Ross Ben. I don't know if you saw that.
I did not, so that's great news. Yeah, I will add him to my notes here, so when I announce it on the show, his name will be in there. That's really great that he's coming back. I thought his presentation for Your Mind 2 was brilliant.
We did as well, and Ross Ben has been confirmed. We also posted the schedule up on the website, so if you're curious to see what speakers are speaking on what days, go to freeyourmindconference.com. But listen, folks, I know you all love Mark Passio, and you're all going to just go see Mark Passio, and Mark Passio this, Mark Passio this. I'm sick of hearing the gosh darn name Mark Passio already. Who the hell is this guy? What on earth is happening here? But go see all the speakers and buy, if you can't afford all the days, buy the all-weekend pass. We basically built in the incentive to give you Friday free. So check it out. And use the promo code Passio. There it is again for your $15 off. That ends tonight, so we got to do that scarcity-based marketing. That ends tonight. Get on it, folks. Mark, I can't wait, man. I'll see you there.
Bob, thank you so much, man. Great job, ladies and gentlemen. Co-organizer of Free Your Mind 3, Bob Tuskin. Go up to freeyourmindconference.com and get your tickets today. We'll be right back, folks. Stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening, right here on RBN. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. I want to thank Bob Tuskin for dropping in during the last segment to talk a little bit about the Free Your Mind 3 conference, an event that is rapidly racing toward us and is going to be probably the biggest event of its kind in the year 2015. Definitely check out freeyourmindconference.com and get your tickets today. I'm going to have probably a couple of other people stopping in. Actually, in the next hour, I'll be having the owner of RBN, John Stadmiller, come in to talk about the pledge drive that is going on at the network right now to help bring in some resources to help the network. So John will be coming up at the top of the second hour. But in studio with me today is Jay Parker of the radio show SRA Today. Jay is also one of the featured speakers at the Free Your Mind 3 conference. And Jay's actually going to be hanging out with me during the show and maybe even joining in on taking a few of the calls later in the show. Let me once again give the call-in number, the toll-free number to join us here on the air, 800-313-9443. Once again, toll-free, 800-313-9443. And I'll be going to Jay in a couple of minutes and getting his take on some of the things that are going on and some of the things I've been talking about. I just have a couple of other real quick event announcements or just quick general announcements. I just want to reiterate that my Second Amendment presentation, which I gave a couple of weeks back at the Liberty on the Rocks meetup here in Philadelphia, you could check that group out at philadelphia.libertyontherocks.org. The presentation that I gave on the Second Amendment called the True Meaning and Purpose of the Second Amendment, that video is now edited and online at What on Earth is Happening and on my YouTube channel. You can go to whatonearthishappening.com, click the videos tab, and it'll be there. I believe it's at the bottom of that page. Or you can go to my YouTube channel and check it out under my presentations. So check it out. It's getting some play going on through YouTube and through my website and through other people who have shared it on social media. So if you feel that the presentation was valuable and worth checking out, definitely pass it along and share it with your friends. So there are still whatonearthishappening.com promotional t-shirts available. To receive a promotional t-shirt as a gift in return for a voluntary donation to help support my work, you can click on the email link that is listed in the article in the top of the news section of the whatonearthishappening.com website. So if you go to the news section of the website, the first article, the first item is about the t-shirts, and you just click that email link, and that'll send an email to me telling me that you want information on how to receive one of these t-shirts. There's also a donation button on the left-hand side of the whatonearthishappening.com website. If you feel that you have received value from the information that I've presented here on the airwaves and on my website, then feel free to make a voluntary donation to help support my work so that I can continue it into the future. Well, with that having been said, I'm going to bring on my guest for this evening in studio with me, Jay Parker. Jay, you do a radio show every Sunday evening called SRA Today on the Blog Talk Network. You've been doing a great job with that, really getting your name out there, putting out some phenomenal information to people about what's really going on in this world, and a lot of information on the dark side of the occult, but also a lot of solution-oriented material that you've shared with folks over the past many, many months. And you're going to also be a speaker at the Free Your Mind 3 conference as well. So I figured I'd bring you on a little bit to talk about the work that you've been doing and get your take on some of the topics that I've recently been covering on the show.
Well, thank you, Mark. I haven't been on your show in a while, and I said, well, you know, we have work that we're working on right now, Mark and I, making a 32 gig information drive with what we believe is the core information, historically, spiritually, philosophy, just what you really need to know about yourself, the cosmos, and what you need to do to get the best life possible. All I have to say is that, you know, we in the peace and freedom movement at times, you know, look at the mainstream media, look at the corruption in the world, and we say, you know, it's a cyclops that cannot be beaten, you know, that the people don't want to wake up and blah, blah, blah. I'm not worried about that. And this is my new message to people who are in the Awake and Aware movement, is keep on keeping on. You know, the biggest thing that's going to happen in the next year on this planet is going to be the BRICS of nations making their own international bank of settlement. Okay.
Jay, let's hold it right there, and I'll let you pick up on that topic on the other side of this break. Folks, you're listening to What on Earth is Happening. We'll be right back.
Penetrate the We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave them kids alone. Hey! Teacher! Leave them kids alone!
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening, right here on Republic Broadcasting. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. In the studio with me tonight, Jay Parker of SRA Today. You can hear his show on the Blog Talk Radio Network every Sunday evening from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And Jay, I'll let you continue with your thoughts before the break.
Well, I just want to say that I'm very optimistic about the future due to the fact that since I woke up from my satanic mind control around the year 2000, I've been studying your work, Mark, Nassim Haramein, Bruce Lipton, all kinds of philosophers like Neil Kramer and John Lamb Lash. And this is what we are here as human beings to do. We are here to grow and learn in consciousness, in reality, of what natural law and what true justice and true spirit are all about. And we need now to understand that this corrupt system worldwide that the international central bankers through the Rothschild Satanists have built is basically got 1 year left to it. The Rothschild banking dynasty is in a fight with the BRICS of nations. And of course that's China, Russia, South Africa, Brazil. And they are building a new Bank of International Settlement, which the Rothschilds Bank of International Settlement is in Basel, Switzerland, where all the international money transfers happen, which gives the Rothschild banking cartels, central bank cartels, literally complete control over the worldwide economy. So now they've never had competition. The BRICS of nations will have a Bank of International Settlement ready in January of 2016, and this will cause a complete collapse of the Rothschild U.S. petrodollar. When that happens, basically America's standard of living overnight will decrease 40%. And it is my belief, with the amount of people who are aware of the corruption, and there's millions of them now. It's well over 10% of true hardcore patriots that are aware of a lot of information. And, I'd say stragglers, you might have another 30%. But you've got more people now who are awake to the peril of tyranny in America than have been awake since 1776. I mean, I'm talking percentage-wise.
I think it's an encouraging thing, and yet it's something that people should be concerned about at the same time, because they're really going to try to collapse the economy here in a way that they can justify them to bring in martial law because, the people are in disarray and upheaval, and, we have to bring order to this. It's going to be kind of a false flag event created financially in many ways,
Yes, it is. And we want to get back to the discussion of course, social engineering that is going on with men and women, the feminist movement, of course. Gloria Steinem admitted publicly that she was funded and helped directly by the
CIA. That's right.
And I just want people to understand that, I've been through hell, folks. I lost 4 good friends that never made it out of Arden, Delaware, where I grew up. I watched them get killed by the cult. And I live my life now for every human being that has been ritually murdered by the Illuminati Satanists. I am standing up and standing in their place, those who have been murdered, and declaring the truth to the American people and the world and the universe. And my life is not my own. My life belongs to natural law, and my life belongs to justice.
It's amazing, Jay, with how many people are involved in this that we're not seeing more whistleblowers come forward. It's like I guess it just takes a specific kind of constitution that somehow transcends this programming, and it happens for it seems like the fewest of the few to ever come out of this. And it's just like I would have thought by now that with what I knew about how the occult works, that there would be so many whistleblowers coming forward at this time, and it just seems like there's just not that much resolve on their part or courage on their part. It seems like they've either been so frightened into the protection of their existing paradigm, or either that they just have the mind control has worked on them so completely that they haven't just been able to break that programming. And that's kind of like what a conference like Free Your Mind is all about too. It's getting people to come together almost like in a group support type situation where they can help grow each other's strength, because it does take an amount of courage to start speaking out and saying the truth, especially when you understand the forces that we're up against and how they can make what they want happen because they have unlimited resources at their disposal, and they have an unlimited amount of minds that are willing to give their power over to them, And yet even in those odds, we're saying we're not giving up, we're not giving in, we're going to move forward, we're going to use our will to press forward. And it doesn't make a difference what happens to us here physically, because we're fighting a battle that goes beyond the physical. We're fighting a battle in spiritual warfare. We're in the spiritual trenches,
Absolutely. Well, science is now catching up to what certain philosophers have been saying for years. And all I got to say is, Mark, you're doing great work at showing people, what Terence McKenna showed people, to get people to understand that culture is your enemy.
That's right.
Pop culture and indoctrination, schooling, is your enemy. Okay? You can keep people down for a long time, Mark, but I'm telling you right now, we're at a phase where, people, I just like 10 years ago, you wouldn't have seen on YouTube a video of a naked man, crawling on a sheet rope, climbing out of a window in Buckingham Palace. You wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago, I don't think. And what I'm saying is energy is coming into the Earth from the center of the galaxy. According to some scientists, I'm going to get more information on this. But the voodoo that you do, Illuminati, it's wearing thin. You don't have the power to keep human consciousness down forever. And you can blow your smoke all you want, but truth is so powerful.
Right.
And I can tell you, EFT helped reprogram me. Okay, and that takes some effort. But I tell you, truth reprogrammed me a hell of a lot more.
Absolutely. There's no substitute for standing within that power and that energy, which is truth. And when people do that and they exercise that level of courage and they have resolve to move forward in consciousness and grow their conscience, grow in the knowledge of the difference between right and wrong, and let that knowledge guide their behavior, nothing is going to stand in the way of that. It doesn't make a difference, how seemingly powerful this control system has been. Those numbers are rising, and that energy will pick up steam as the years roll on, and pretty soon this is going to become common knowledge. That doesn't mean we don't have a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of sleeping people out there, but you could definitely tell more and more people are hungry for this information, and they're coming online to it a lot faster.
Well, I'm noticing. I do counseling, SRA counseling. I mean, in a free basis, people contact me, and I try to give them pointers as to what I did to get my head back together again and become myself again. And I just want to say that some of the people, in fact, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be having a man on who spent a life very similar to mine. And it's going to be an interesting interview. But the thing that I want to say is, the cat's out of the bag, Mark, with the internet. The DVDs that Alex Jones alone has put into the information system of America. I mean, we're talking millions and millions of DVDs exposing the Federal Reserve, exposing the Illuminati bankers creating all the wars. This is powerful truth that, I don't understand the fundamental basis of the consciousness holodeck that we're in, but what you think and where your heart's at is of utmost importance in this reality.
Because it's ultimately going to determine the seemingly external experience that you're having.
Yep.
I mean, that's the real law of attraction, folks, As we treat other people, the whole society will be. The more people that are doing violence because they think that that's some kind of a right, and, they have been designated with the ability to do an action that really causes harm, and more people believe that, the more enslaved in the aggregate an entire society is going to be. The more people who really understand the difference between right and wrong and have developed a conscience and then exercise that conscience by willfully choosing the right over the wrong, you're going to see in the aggregate a society become more and more free. It's just that general concept, that overarching natural law, what I call the law of freedom. Yes, there is a law or a mechanism that governs whether a society is free. It's an algorithm, you might call it. It's as morality increases, freedom increases, and as morality in the aggregate in a population declines or wanes, freedom declines or wanes, and you have more and more enslavement and tyranny come into that society, into that culture. It's just a very simple equation, and unfortunately most people still haven't seen that that's really how it works, and this is a natural universal law that is just in place in the universe that governs whether a society is free or not. Once we come to that awakening as a people, maybe we could start making some progress and break down this outdated, immoral system that really isn't serving who we are, and create something much better in its place.
Well, we've run out of time, Mark. We've run out of time with the Rothschild banking system because in 1 year it's going to have competition and totally fall. It will fall because I guarantee you the Chinese and the Russians and the Brazilians, I mean all the other countries that are trying to get out from under of the British Anglo Empire, they realize they have a choice: stand up or die. It all comes down. Look at the flags of the American Revolution, for God's sakes. Live free or die.
Yep.
Join or die.
Yep.
Okay?
I mean,
it's about stand up for your life if you value your life.
They were telling people back then, this is an issue of life or death. This isn't something to be taken lightly. And, I constantly think about a lot of the sacrifice of those men to win the modicum of freedom that they were able to, and how it seems that we've squandered it in the modern world. And I think we're doing our ancestors, the legacy of our ancestors, a grave injustice if we don't stand up right now. Now is the time to stand up. Now is the time to speak up, speak the truth to other people unapologetically, and consistently, and that's what this is all about. That's what the great work is all about, folks. So, in kind of keeping with that and the transition over, and I'll start taking calls in the next segment, hopefully. Over the last many weeks, I've been talking about a pretty controversial topic that a lot of people don't want to hear, they don't want to get into, and it's kind of like ignored as the big elephant in the room, and this is this topic of the war that's going on between the sexes in our society. And it's a war that was largely fomented by a lot of secret societies, occult organizations, covert think tanks that are working toward globalism and human enslavement, eugenics groups, covert eugenics groups, and also, socialist schools of thought and Marxist schools of thought and intelligence agencies. I mean, you have all of these draconian groups working together, seemingly pushing the same agenda, and it's all because that this agenda leads to one place: bondage, enslavement, tyranny, total control by the state being wed as some, evil, psychopathic, overarching dark father figure or dark, husband figure to the women of a society. And in doing so, it acts as a form of controlled breeding. It acts as a form of what I call epi-eugenics. Eugenics that is not waged through physical control of genes or physical control of the breeding of a population, like, let's say, through something like forced sterilization. No, this works through mind control, and then as a result of that deep mind control conditioning, that social engineering that is in place and entrenched within a large, overwhelmingly large portion of one gender, of one sex of the human species, then it propagates out as controlled or selective breeding, or in other words, eugenics, throughout the entire society. This is a topic that I've been covering over about the last 4 or 5 weeks on the show. And, I've taken a few calls from people at the end of some of the shows, but want to kind of get your take on, this whole thing, and then we'll move to some callers and get their concerns or their comments or their questions, and you could chime in on some of that. One of the things I want to just wrap up kind of on this topic on before I move to you, Jay, to say what your take on this last, several weeks of material that I've been putting out, is that I just want to say there's one other aspect that I'd really like to touch on when it comes to this whole topic, and that is the power of real women. When women step into their true power, when they step into their true selves, and they stop, wanting to be manipulated by this control system that promises them things in return for their obedience or compliance, what kind of power and effect they can have on the world. So we'll pick up that on the other side of this break, folks. Stay with us.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on RBN. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Before the last break, I was just talking about, I wanted to bring up a positive aspect of the material that I have been covering and just briefly put out there what I feel is the inherent power that exists in women, that exists in the female gender of our species to help to heal humanity. Women could be some of the most powerful influencers. They could be some of the most powerful healing agents if they choose to step into that power and into that role within our society. It's just so few of them have, kind of decided that that's what they want to do, that that's, the work that they want to do and accomplish in this life. I want to go back and just briefly mention that movie Jupiter Ascending, which I was talking about before, that I really thought the implementation of it was sort of weak, but I thought the theme of the movie was strong in that, a heroine character, a female-based hero character, needed to make a decision about whether she was going to, this is the overarching plot of the movie without getting into a specific spoiler. The choice that is placed before the heroine of the film is that, does she do what is comfortable for her and her family, or do what is required to just save her and her family, or does she step into the larger form of love, which is agape? In other words, family love and the love of just ones that are close to you is known as philos. You have romantic love, which is eros, okay? Then philos is the form of love that is between family members and siblings and friends, etc. But then you have the form of love that they talked about in the Greek mystery traditions that was called agape in Greek. And agape means universal love. It means true care, wider care, and caring for all, care for truth, care for that there's justice in society, care for other people's suffering in general. And she has to make a decision whether she wants to stay in this just familial based love of family and close ones that are close to her, or does she move into care for all of humanity and truly do the right thing and not care about what happens to just her. And this is stepping out of the satanic mindset, really. It's stepping out of the mindset of me all day long, and thinking about something bigger and deeper and more universal in your concern and in your care. And that's what I felt the movie did a very good job at portraying that choice or that theme. While I personally didn't really particularly think it was a greatly implemented movie. That's kind of almost neither here nor there. The allegory was what was powerful and informative and true. So in that sense, I think people could learn a good bit from it. But Jay, I want to get your take before we start taking some calls tonight on some of the material that I covered over the last few weeks. And we'll do that right on the other side of this break. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on RBN. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on RBN. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Jay, I'm going to go to you in a second just to get your take. I just want to say that, if the vast majority of women in this world would step into their role as nurturers, true caretakers, true protectors of the youth and the innocence of our society, and not be kind of influenced by all of the lures of the state and the so-called protection that they think it gives them, or the security that they think it affords them, they could really step in to the power of being able to act as a healing influence for humanity, simply in their capacity to influence order followers to stop doing what they are doing and to quit their jobs. That's the number one role that I think humanity, the power that women can step in to heal humanity. Because let's face it, folks, the vast majority of people who are truly creating, who are acting as the creators of the Dark New World Order, as physical dominators, are men. And the women that they are around and with on a daily basis have to start dissuading them from doing this and not supporting what they're doing and not supporting the roles that these power-hungry men and largely immoral men are stepping into for a paycheck. And that needs to stop being thought of as acceptable. And women have the ability to do this if they first waken themselves, and it's going to be a very, tall order. But, I think we're already starting to see, this in a very small way. And, I think with events like Ferguson painting the police really as they truly are, people are waking up to what's really going on and the brutality and the violent nature of what's been going on in this society for a long time. I think we're starting to see, this turn a little bit. Jay, I want to go to you and get your thoughts on just in general the topic of neo-feminism that I brought up over the last several weeks, and if you can comment on this idea that I think women can step into the role of some of the most powerful agents of change amongst us in their capacity to influence order followers to stop doing what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. We all have our role to play in healing this planet and our species, and it's time to stop saying I'm powerless. It's time to stop saying somebody else has got to do this, I don't have time. And it's time to say I answer to a higher power.
Yep.
I answer to justice, to love, to honor, to truth. And lay your life down, and as Jesus Christ said, and you will gain your life.
That's right.
And this is what I have discovered in the last 14 years of study. The further I go down the rabbit hole, okay, I see the corrupt. Nobody studies the corruption as much as me. I joke, but it's a lot. I spend a lot of time looking at what they're doing to destroy the planet with their Fukushimas, and they're putting all the radioactive waste from every nuclear power plant in Europe is pumped directly into the North Atlantic and the English Channel through a processing facility in France. What are these people, mad? They're pumping raw cesium-137, which has a half-life of 30,000 years, directly into the North Atlantic Ocean and the English Channel, which is now getting into the fish and the seashells, and it's just like, what is this? I mean, I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of people in this world that don't have the knowledge that you and I have, Mark. But when the 40% decrease happens in the petrodollar, you're going to see people saying, okay, I've had enough. Because the American government has gotten, by and large, nothing but cooperation from the American people. With every war, with every intervention, every nation building, every lie, we have obeyed and we have endured the corruption. But now it is apparent to people that have something left of a mind that the oligarchs want total destruction of the middle class and slavery for everyone but themselves. So in the vein of talking about social engineering, and this is what the breakup of the American family was, nothing but a eugenics operation.
Yep.
But the you were talking about Louis Schlafly's?
Phyllis Schlafly's book. Yeah. The Who Killed the American Family. Yeah.
Now
she laid out a lot of it in that book.
Now I haven't looked at her research, but I have looked at Dr. John Coleman's book and read that, Tavistock Institute for Human Relations.
That's right.
And you have to get that book, because if you want to quit your television addiction, just read that book. You'll turn the TV off. Trust me.
Oh yeah, I mean it goes deep into how these think tanks, largely based overseas, set the agenda for popular culture and basically steer whole societies, because they understand the deep psychology that is required to be understood in order to manipulate people based on their, internal psychological mechanisms and, their base desires and instincts, etc. And they know how to push just the right buttons and, steer entire societies the way they want them to go.
And it's amazing how the Marxists and the fascists, which basically it's a joke.
The opposames, yeah.
The opposames, exactly. Because, they say, the Nazis were the opposite of the Soviets.
Yeah.
Excuse me, when you look at the societies of the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany, they're identical.
Yeah.
So, the opposame trip is not working. And, Mark, people are waking up. And I tell you the truth here. I know in my heart that when you look at people like Laura Eisenhower, when you look at people like Kate B., who shamanic endeavors, doing things on a one-to-one basis, reaching out to people, trying to teach them about their own power, about how to disconnect from the lie and start walking the center path. I'm telling you, the change is going to happen. It's going to be positive. Because I don't know, maybe I've lost my mind, but I feel that when they pull their next 1929 crash, or their boom, 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 we got to go to war to protect ourselves, I'm sorry, the American people are fed up with war. And you can convince a bunch of eggheads that it's necessary to invade Russia, but this ain't going to fly. So let's, I'm going to get back to you talking about the destruction of the male and female natural relationship, and talk about the social engineering. But I recommend that everyone go out and seek Aaron Russo's last interview with Infowars.com with Alex Jones.
That was a great interview.
With
Aaron. Yeah.
With Aaron Russo, his last full-length interview with Alex Jones. He goes into Nicholas Rockefeller joking about, we created the feminist movement to destroy the family so we could tax both the men and the women. And destroy the family, and then Big Daddy government
get the children,
would
get
become
the children
the parent.
Into the government indoctrination camps, and they'll be the next Hitler-Jugend.
Well, the government wants to put children in school at the age of 3 now.
I mean, like I said, folks, during the expose of the Neo-Feminist Agenda that I did over the last several weeks, I laid out a lot of the think tanks that are involved, and if you just look into their work, they're quite open about it. It's not even like they're even trying to hide it, I mean, the Frankfurt School and, those who were working through Antonio Gramsci's plan of the long march through the cultural institutions constantly talked about that we need to break down the family dynamic, because that's the thing that, it acts as the social cohesiveness within a people that we want to conquer, that we want to rule over, and that they're very open about their strategy. I mean, a caller called in last week, I think it was last week, to talk about that right in the Satanic Witch, which I called a field manual for the Neo-Feminism Agenda. It says right in the introduction, which was written by LaVey's daughter, Zena, that this is a manual for eugenics. It says it's a manual for selective breeding, which is eugenics, and it uses the word eugenics. She uses the word eugenics, so they're very out in the open about it. I mean, the Fabian Society, who's also a big part of this, neo-Marxist, neo-socialism, coming in and essentially breaking up the family unit, playing the two sexes off against each other. Their logo is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Literally, they're telling you we're trying to conquer a society from the inside, and that's really what the Nazis and the communists did. They tried it out in the open to have their open revolutions, and when people rebelled because they knew it was slavery, they said, well, we'll just shake hands, we'll work behind the scenes, we'll conquer governments covertly, we'll conquer societies covertly through their social institutions. And then, we'll divide the spoils on the other side after we have them enslaved. They just shook hands behind the scenes. And this is that occultocracy that I've been talking about. We don't live in a patriarchy or a matriarchy. We live in what I call the occultocracy, the rule by the dark occultists. the forces that went behind the scenes, that wanted to wage war covertly through mind control, through social engineering, through eugenics, through epi-eugenics, as I call it. And they've been very, very successful because up until now, people have not been able to really pick apart their agenda and understand all the aspects and all the elements of their plan from a focused analysis point of view, as operational warfare, as a not only a psyop strategy, but a eugenics strategy. And I think we are seeing the very beginnings of people starting to wake up to that agenda. Jay, your thoughts on that?
People are waking up, Mark, more and more. This is because of the internet, and it's just funny that they're Anonymous is doing a program where they're actively seeking out the pedophile cults of the Illuminati and trying to expose them.
Yeah, I know there's a big one going on in the north of London, and I can't remember the district name, but a lot of names coming out, and they're doing some fact-finding sessions there to see, the extent of it. I'm sure they're going to realize how extensive it is once they start going down this rabbit hole. And I think England has been doing a much better job at exposing the pedophilia and the ritual pedophilia, the satanic ritual abuse that's going on within their society. I think the United States should take a lesson from them as far as speaking up about this and exposing it. But it is happening. It's going on, and it needs to continue and needs to go much further than it already has. Jay, we do have some callers on the line. Do you want to go to the phones and take some calls with me?
Yeah, sure. I do want to say to people that, in all honesty, Aaron Russo's interview with Alex Jones, you've got to listen to that because it'll tie into what Mark has been saying for the last, I don't know how many years, about this issue and some others.
Right from the horse's mouth, coming from somebody who's deeply involved within one
Nicholas
of these think
Rockefeller.
Tanks. Right, the Rockefeller Foundation, exactly. All right, let's go to the phone lines and hear what people have to say on this topic. And really, anything that you want to propose or talk about is fair game. There's no taboo topics here. I'd like to take some calls on the whole Neo-Feminism Agenda topic that I've been covering the last few weeks. But if people do want to wander from that, it's fair game. Anything is fair game. So let's go to the phones. Let's hear from Andrew in Arizona. Andrew, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
Hey, Mark. How you doing? Hey, Jay.
Hi.
Doing well.
Hey, listen, you guys were talking about Infowars.com and the Alex Jones interview with Aaron Russo, and in that interview they say they're going to chip everyone with the RFID microchip. And that kind of reminds me of a movie I watched recently, Dark City.
Oh, great movie.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie because it's exactly what the Illuminati or the dark occultists want. They want to have everyone walking around with no memories of who they are or what they are, and they want to just kind of blot out the light and just turn everything into complete darkness.
And put them into a trance at their will. Yeah, great allegory of that movie. You could really glean a lot about. People can say a whole lot and embed ideas through allegorical fiction, and I think it's a good medium for teaching people through the subconscious. My tact and my approach is quite different and hits the conscious mind, and is a direct engagement process. But making spiritual allegories like that through fiction, through fictional stories, can really be quite powerful in conveying an understanding of what is going on and convey agendas to people, if they at least allow, from a certain open-minded perspective, to allow the possibility that, hey, this might be about something bigger. I could apply this fictional story to what's going on in the world in some way, and I don't have to just take it on a purely fictional basis. I could look at it from a different perspective. If people do that, I think they'd learn a lot from allegorical films, and I think Dark City is a great one.
Absolutely.
Jay, have you ever seen that one?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's an excellent film.
Well, anyways, moving on from that, Mark, I sent you a hard drive, I think it was a couple months ago, for the ARC data. And I'm kind of sifting through it right now, and I'm wondering, what is your top 3 things I should go to on that hard drive in terms of research and due diligence?
That's so difficult because there's so much on there, you know. I think anything that talks about mind control is something that should be checked out and looked at on that drive. I think the things that are in there on Satanism and what Satanism really is, and the kind of different schools of Satanism that are out there, if you will, the dark occult religion, the dark occult ideology, should really be understood, because this is really what the religion of these quote-unquote elites, these psychopaths, is. It is their religion. And if you don't understand the mentality of the people that you're at war with, if you don't understand what makes them tick, what drives them, you're not going to understand the nature of what we're up against, and you're not going to understand what's going to be required to get us out of it collectively as a species. So I think that's very important. And then I would say the third thing is anything that deals with really deeply working somebody through any kind of trauma and up to a higher level of consciousness. Any material that deals with human consciousness on there and how the mind really works would be a big help to people. Now, you know, that's not really limiting it down to specific things, but if you stick with those general topics, I think, you know, you'll go a long way in your understanding with the information that's on that drive. So, Andrew, I want to thank you for the call. Great points that you brought up. And ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up to another break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening right here on RBN. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on Republic Broadcasting. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Riding shotgun with me for this edition of the show is Jay Parker of SRA Today, a radio show that he hosts every Sunday evening on the Blog Talk Radio Network from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to check out Jay's radio show every Sunday. The call-in number to join us as we are taking your calls through the duration of the show is 800-313-9443. Once again, the call-in number to join us, 800-313-9443. I want to say thanks to Andrew in Arizona for his call in the previous segment, and let's go back to the phone lines. Let's hear from Bob in Cincinnati. Is this the Bob from Cincinnati?
What a delight and a pleasure it is to speak to both of you. How are you both this evening?
Bob, it is phenomenal to hear from you. I'm doing really well, and really great that you've called into the show. Haven't heard from you in a long time. It's always a pleasure.
Hey,
hi,
you
Bob.
have been... Oh, hi, Jay. How are you doing, my friend?
Good.
Excellent. It is such an honor and a pleasure to call back in after many, many months. I have been studying like Jay. We kind of delve into the darkness of this world. Mark, your topics, I can't believe that you continue to amaze your audience. I mean, the insidious neo-feminist agenda, the emasculation of the American and Western male, the despiritualization of the inauthentic and of man and woman. I mean, dude, you are tearing it up.
Well, Bob, I appreciate that so much. You know, it could be a controversial topic to head into, but I think I did it in a tempered way, and I think a lot of people came away from it with a very increased understanding of a very important part of the agenda that is really tearing the world apart, not just America, but the entire world through fomenting this war between the sexes. And the information that I brought forward was, again, first and foremost about trying to empower people through that knowledge so that we can heal that divide that has been widened between the sexes. And hopefully this information will help to start bringing about that type of a healing process.
I agree 100%, Mark, and I'm in full agreement with your assessment that the role of the sacred female in our culture and in the reality we live in has been stifled, stunted, and debilitated. She, along with the inauthentic male, such as myself, working 50 hours a week to make our pittance of a slave credits in our minor bank accounts to be able to scratch and pay our bills while our children her children lament in the care of strangers so that we can buy more plastic things and another vehicle that we can't afford and insurances and things that we don't need, while our children lament in private hands that strangers we don't even know, Mark. The sadness in her eyes I see every day myself in the workplace. I see it in the dark, sad eyes of the child picked up at 6 p.m. in the evening. Mark, it's heartbreaking.
Well, Bob, don't be so hard on yourself, because I wouldn't even count you as that inauthentic male, because at least you're mentally emancipated and understand what's going on, and you understand this agenda. I'd call the inauthentic male someone that doesn't even really understand what's going on, or almost delights in being part of that hierarchical order or process. At least that's not your mental attitude. You know what's going on, and you're trying to become involved as much as possible to be a part of doing something about that. That's a long way from the type of totally in the box thinking that I'm talking about when I'm talking about the inauthentic being. So I wouldn't sell yourself short, man. You've done the work as well and put out information out there, and interviewed people and touched on topics that are very esoteric and very liberating to human consciousness if they're properly understood. So I think you're definitely on the right side and part of the healing process. But I understand what you mean. In so being physically still a part of that system, you want to emancipate yourself physically from that as well.
Absolutely, and you're very kind to say that, Mark. We won't even touch about the emasculated male and my similarities to that. But at any rate, my good friend, there are a couple of points under neo-feminism, and two of them were in the ancient days, as Jay knows, as he has shared on his show SRA Today on Blog Talk Radio on Type 1 Radio Ashram, that in the ancients would sacrifice their own infants on a stone slab to the god Molech, the dark horn god Molech. And to this day, Mark, infants are still seen through like you said, an epigenetics, epi-eugenics operation that the dark occultists don't even need to do it themselves. My God, Mark, the people place their infants up on the slab, and young couples, Mark, who are not married, who are struggling, and who all of a sudden find themselves pregnant with a baby, they often the infant is aborted, Mark. Sure. It's a nightmare. The factories are churning, Mark. Nothing has changed. Mark, can I stay over?
Absolutely. We'll hold you over till the next segment, Bob. Stay with us, everyone. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on RBN. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We're taking your calls for the duration of the show. Riding shotgun with me is Jay Parker of SRA Today. The call-in number to join us, 800-313-9443. Once again, toll-free, 800-313-9443. No taboo topics, of course, there never are on this show, but if you'd like to call in and talk about the Neo-Feminism Agenda, the topic that I've just completed covering over the last 5 shows or so on What on Earth is Happening, I'd like to take some calls regarding that. We were talking to Bob from Cincinnati before the break hit us. Bob, you were talking about how abortion really plays a major role in this agenda as well, and I wholeheartedly agree with you.
Absolutely, Mark. The mind control, and that's exactly what it is. People laugh sometimes, people who are unaware of the term mind control. As soon as you say that word or that phrase, they automatically go into cognitive dissonance, and they layer on what they've been taught what mind control means, which is a form of classic 1950s Manchurian Candidate brainwashing. But as you and I and Jay and others who've studied this deeply know, mind control is a very quiet influencing of the thought process. And this plays exactly into the thought process of young people who don't know the world, don't understand what's going on, don't understand their responsibilities to humanity and natural law. And when they're knee-deep in debt, and all of a sudden the prospect of an infant appears in their world, they're not wed, they have no income coming in. The system, Mark, as you know, the system has created a convenient place for them to deposit the infant into the arms of death. And God, Mark, how I weep, and it pains me. And thanks to your show 4 or 5 years ago, when I first started listening to What on Earth is Happening, my God, the light came on. And this is not a political issue. The dark occult politicized this. This is a spiritual issue. Yes. This has to do with obeying natural law, period, full stop. And I know you know that, Mark. I'm just sharing this with your audience, some of the audience that might not see it this way. But I would like to hear your thoughts on that before I make another point.
Without any question, the whole abortion agenda is a 100% ritual sacrifice, never-ending factory. You know, that's they want bloodletting of humans, of animals, going 24/7 on this planet, and they essentially have that. I mean, that's what a satanic culture does. A satanic culture continuously kills. It's about death. It's the cult of death. It's the order of death. You know, it's the cult of the black sun, as I talked about over the past many weeks. This is the inversion of everything that is positive, that is based on life, that is based on truth. You know, it's the inversion of all of that. And they want to turn nature on its head. They want to turn natural law on its head, and they want to rule in hell. You know, they're perfectly content to do that because these beings are devoid of truth. They're devoid of joy. They're, you know, devoid of any true emotion, of any true creative capacity, and they want other beings to be as miserable as they are and in hell with them. And like I said, they're doing a very successful job, but simultaneously, the light side of things is also doing a relentless job at exposing this darkness in our world. And you know, have had a modicum of success in waking some people up. We just have to push this a lot farther and get a lot more people involved to do the great work, and then we'll be making some real progress, I think. Jay, your take on this?
Well, I just sit back in amazement at the status quo churches today, okay, when it comes to allowing fetal tissue to be put in vaccines and in Pepsi.
Yes.
Where are the anti-abortion people? Are they down in Atlanta surrounding the Pepsi headquarters? No, they're not. You know what I mean? Because
what kind of deep, religious people are getting involved to, talk about that this stuff is being used in food products, or in vaccines,
it's in
like
Pepsi.
You said. Yeah.
There's fetal tissue in Pepsi. Pepsi uses human baby fetal tissue as a flavoring. You know about this, right?
I've heard.
And the board of directors, the stockholders of PepsiCo, tried to stop Pepsi from putting fetal tissue into the Pepsi, and the federal government sided with Pepsi company and said the stockholders cannot force them to take the fetal tissue out of the Pepsi.
You and also you don't see things like priests or religious leaders getting involved in trying to get this stuff taken out of like vaccines.
Why aren't they protesting that humans are being fed to humans?
Yeah.
If they're so goddamn righteous, because I'm protesting it.
it just goes to show you the inactivity that a lot of people are in because they're held back with certain beliefs, or they're so afraid of what other people will think of them. It's this whole idea that they won't step out of their comfort zone, they won't step out of their position to speak up on something because, oh, then what will people think of me in my official capacity as this or that, That's why I'm just so always hesitant of groups, groupthink behavior, religious institutions, etc. It's like these people set up boundaries for themselves, and then when the truth comes along and shatters that boundary, they won't go where the truth leads because they're too comfortable within their own little boundary that they've set up for themselves. Their role, their community status, the money that they're making, etc., the status in society that they enjoy. They'd rather protect that, and so then they'll just protect the whole paradigm. They'll go along, for the whole ball of wax and protect the paradigm. That's why I call a lot of these people in science, in religion, in government positions, etc. They're the paradigm protectors. Even many of them who know some of the things that are going on, they won't step outside of that role and take it to its full conclusion or its full measures as it needs to be if we're going to put this into hyperdrive and really wake up the public. It's going to take a lot more sacrifice on people's part, I think, to really step into, the heart energy, the power of true care to really be a warrior for the truth. And it's not an easily done thing. Like, again, I go back to thinking about how few people have been whistleblowers regarding the occult. What about even the positive side of the occult? Well, I happen to know for a fact there's thousands and thousands of people who know about, really understand about consciousness and how it works, understand about the mind control, understand about the positive aspects of occult information, and yet they stay silent about them because they have this old hermetic notion of don't cast the pearls before the swine, this elitist attitude when it comes to spiritual information. It's not going to get done that way either. That's just as bad as staying silent for all those selfish reasons. Now you're kind of taking this spiritual elitist attitude and you're going to stay silent for those reasons. It's like, one is purely ego driven and the other one is like kind of like you think you've transcended the ego to such an extent that this information is too good for some people and they're unworthy of it. I mean, I think we went down into a slippery slope by a lot of people taking that kind of a mental attitude and not saying, hey, this is information that should be spread in an egalitarian fashion and people should just be handed it like an adult, and that's your dharma to do that. That's the work that you need to do that, to place that information out there, and that's their karma, whether they're going to accept it or not, whether they're going to take it and integrate it and use it for the betterment of humanity or not. That's their karmic influence or their karmic situation, however you want to look at it. So I think that just more people need to step up and forget about these classical roles or what other people think or what they've been told about what they should do with this knowledge, and we should just all bring it to the table and speak it constantly. That whole idea of alchemy being labor and constancy. In other words, it's work, but it's work that needs to be done continuously. There isn't going to be a total break in this for anybody. It's a heavy weight that needs to be picked up by all equally and moved, and we can move it if we all pick up some of that weight. And as the saying goes, many hands make light work, but it's still a continuous effort that needs to be exercised on our part.
That's right. And occultists need to speak out, Mark. They have been silent. Good occultists, people who know the truth of natural law, who are keeping silent. You will have to answer for that. The age of Pisces is over. It's time to speak. And Mark, I just want to say one last thing about epi-eugenics.
Yes.
there is a self-sterilization going on. The Germans, right before World War II, experimented with sterilization by drawing couples who they saw as Untermenschen, subhumans, which, of course, is just their dark ideology of nonsense. But they would bring the couples into the office, and they would have an X-ray machine in the desk. And they experimented with this, and they found that by high doses of radiation from X-ray, they could get a small percentage of people sterilized. Now, Mark, it's failed. I know, it's horrific to think about.
Bob, they're doing that every day with these police trucks taking X-rays in people's house, without their informed consent, just hitting the population wherever they feel like it to penetrate and look into the homes. That's been going on. That's been going on from police helicopters.
Mark,
they've been hitting the public with these X-rays. I was just talking about it with my friend John today. They've been hitting these people, the population, with these rays, and who knows what that's doing to the fertility rates. You're absolutely right.
I've got a darker one for you, Mark. We're doing, once again, the dark occultists don't need to do anything. We're doing it to ourselves. Ladies, just sit that laptop right on your lap and irradiate your ovaries day in, day out. Or was it that cell phone in your back pocket? Set it right next to your duff and get that radiation so close every day. Irradiate your ovaries. Or was that your sperm disappearing day and night? Oh, well, I've got one last one for you. Stick that cell phone right next to your head as you speak every day, irradiating your brain. Ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure. I will see you both at Free Your Mind 3. Pick up your tickets today.
Bob, always a pleasure to hear from you, man. Great points, always great insights that you bring up on the show. It's been too long, man. Don't be a stranger, and thanks so much for the call, man.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Bob.
Bob from Cincinnati, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's move on. Let's hear from another caller. Let's go to Mike in Colorado. Mike, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I wanted to say, Mark, your work on the neo-feminism your analysis is spot on, and the way that you explained it really, I think, gives people a good idea of what's happening and what's going on with the outside world.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, the idea to empower women and, as you said, have them step into their power, I think for all humanity and all human beings, for me, what's a paramount understanding is that if it's of the mind of man, it's a fabrication.
In general, yeah. I mean, if it doesn't exist in nature and we believe in it, that's a construct that's invented by us that's really only going to take us down a dark path. The idea here is to stop accepting illusion as reality and get back to a deep understanding of the natural world as it really exists. Absolutely.
Well, or even a light path. So when I hear the term that people need to wake up, that's a mental construct as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not to say that there aren't different levels of consciousness. I guess it's just kind of like a way of putting something, like a metaphor, that their level of consciousness is so low it approximates not being conscious. It approximates a form of unconsciousness because they're unable to see certain things that are actually before them in the natural world, or they are in denial of the acceptance that those things exist in the natural world before them in their actual physical presence and their physical experience. So that's kind of where that whole construct or that whole idea came from, of comparing the people who are very unaware to being quote-unquote asleep, and the people who are aware, to being quote-unquote awake. My criterion, the criteria that I look at of being really spiritually awake differs a lot from what people traditionally look at that as, and you can get an idea for that if you check out my Streetwise Spirituality Seminar, where I go through the points about what I feel it means to really be awakened spiritually.
Well, sure, and you get that innately, and I do too, but I think listeners and I think the people walking around this world, they don't realize that the satanic agenda is a total fabrication. They don't understand it. They think it's something like there's the Satan thing that's going to come and take their children from underneath the bed. And so they're disempowered because
they don't grasp that
they don't
it's an
realize it's not real.
incremental process. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, they don't realize it's not real. And you can step out of it at any second.
Sure, because it's all based in getting people to accept illusions that aren't real. Sure. The farther away that they push people from the natural reality, the more into the satanic world they have pushed them. And the solution lies into coming back to a deep understanding of what's real and what's not real. Again, the ability to discern truth from falsehood, which is really where we started this whole discussion. The whole show started with that whole concept, that's what is ultimately required. The satanic mindset keeps people in an illusory identification. And as long as they're in that type of a low vibratory identification, they're open to all kinds of manipulatory tactics. And they can be kept in an artificial version of reality.
Right.
Jay, your take on that?
Well, what you just said was totally right on. That's all I have to say. I mean, I couldn't have said it any better.
How do we talk?
It's part of what they don't understand. Part of what they don't understand, Mike, is that this is an incremental process. It's not something that happens overnight. A society doesn't just wake up the next day and find everything has changed and everything has gone bad. It happens so slowly that many people don't have that long historical worldview to understand these patterns. They're not educated enough in actual world history to see, hey, this is not something that's new. This has gone on before. Techniques very familiar to what are being used and employed now have been used, and we've been down this path before as a species, until we actually come out of their manipulative methods, nothing's going to change. So stay on the line. We'll continue on the other side of the break, folks. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Code of silence that we don't dare speak. There's a wall between us and a river so deep. We keep pretending that there's nothing wrong. There's a code of silence and it can't go on.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on RBN. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We were talking to Mike in Colorado before the break hit us in the last segment. Mike, I'll bring you back on and let you finish up your thoughts from the last segment.
Thanks, Mark. Well, I'm sitting here and I'm wondering, maybe we need to make up some new words so people can understand.
Okay.
Because if you tell a Democrat that Democrat is a construct, it doesn't sink in.
Sure. Because they're so identified with it.
Exactly. And, I mean, even, you call a tree, that's a construct as well, and it's that fundamentally basic. And we've trapped ourselves into this thing. And I listened to you, and I've seen your work for a few years, and I think you're fantastic, and I think you work your tail off to try to get that across to people. But
yeah, it's called ego identification. It's like, when people are asked, what are you, or who are you, most of them stretch for a role that they're playing in society, or think of themselves as their job, or, the type of person that they are. Most of them don't even think, I'm a being that is having an experience, in the physical domain, but my nature is of spirit, and, this is all a growth process and a learning process to develop the soul, to develop the, individuated unit of consciousness that we would refer to as the soul. Most people don't even have that type of a perspective. They're so bound in a worldly way to an ego-based role. It's what I called ego identification in early material that I covered on this show. And I think people would definitely benefit from, getting a deep understanding of what that ego attachment and ego identification is all about, because it helps people to understand just how deeply in mind control people can be as a result of clinging to these roles as their identity in life and thinking that there's nothing outside of that.
Well, and that also makes me wonder what guys like you and I did karmically to be here with all these people who don't get it.
Or maybe we chose it willfully because we're the best people for the job out there in the universe. Who knows, That's how I have to look at it. I can't look at at this as punishment. It's like I look at this as a mission. And, I think we were kind of spiritual warriors that willfully volunteered for this mission. That's the way I look at it. They said, hey, we got a planet out there that's going to be a real tough nut to crack. And we said, yeah, watch this. I think that's the kind of team that we are. That's the kind of away mission players that we are.
Well, and good for you, and thanks for your work, and keep it up, brother.
You got it, my friend. Thanks so much. Hey, Mike, that's the only way I think we can look at it. If we look at it a different way, we might drive ourselves crazy. You know what I mean? I kind of had that take of, hey, maybe I'm here because karmically I did something really bad. But the way I tend to want to look at it these days is I accepted a mission. And I think we're going to be in that mission for the long haul. We're going to complete it. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We'll be right back after these words with more of your calls. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on Republic Broadcasting. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. We're taking your calls for the duration of the show. The toll-free number to join us here on What on Earth is Happening, 800-313-9443. Once again, toll-free, 800-313-9443. Let's go to two good, close personal friends of mine, Tim and Kelly in Philadelphia. Tim was one of the main organizers of the second Free Your Mind conference, and his wife Kelly is on the line with him as well. Tim and Kelly, are you with us?
Hey, Mark. How are you?
Doing well. How are you doing, Kelly?
I'm all right. Tim's right behind me. He's just putting one of the babies to bed.
No worries.
So what I wanted to address, and this is specifically to all your female listeners out there, all the ladies out there,
sure.
And to all the men who have sisters and daughters, and any female that's close to them, that there's a cycle of neo-feminism that's also the destruction of family that I have experienced, and I feel I have pulled away from, and I just want to go over like this cycle that I've seen myself go through, I've seen other women go through, but also I have solutions for that as well.
Sure,
and
go right ahead.
So, the first cycle is, from the moment of birth, if a woman is giving birth in a hospital, her baby's traumatized. And, she's splashed with, I'm talking about the babies. The baby's a girl. She's splashed, with stinging erythromycin in the eyes, which can cause blindness. Then they want to inject her with a poisonous vaccine within hours of her birth. Then they want to shove tubes and other objects up her nose and down her throat. And then finally they separate mother and child. And then when the baby is about 6, 7, 8 years old, she's introduced to princess programming, where she's the damsel in distress that always needs saving. There's the promotion of sex. Pink is everywhere. Barbie, Disney films. And specifically about those Disney films, the mother of those princesses in those films always is absent, usually dead, and then she's raised by the evil stepmother. So there you have that. You have that aspect of the destruction of the sacred feminine. And then, fast forward 10 years.
Well, Kelly, what that is, that's them telling you exactly what they're doing.
Yep.
That's one of them wave hello to you. Continue.
Thanks, Jay. And then, fast forward like 10 years later, and you have women going to college. And I used to work at a university before I had my children. And the one thing about what they're pushing right now, and it's specifically at the university I worked at, is STEM education. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And they're pushing this all over the board. But specifically, they're pushing it to women. And STEM is really left brain. And what I see when these students that have STEM education come out, they usually go work for the military-industrial complex and the medical mafia. And now they want women to go into those fields.
Sure.
And then after college, get a job. Get a job, ladies. Get taxed like your male counterparts. You're still going to make less. So there's that other, could be false debate, if you will. And then you meet your Prince Charming and you have your dream wedding, where you're acting out your princess programming. But
and
it doesn't end.
Then have the child put them into the same system and wash, rinse, and repeat, and do the same cycle all over again.
Exactly.
Yep.
And after that wedding, it doesn't end there. You got to go and get a marriage license so that you can have a menage a trois with the government. So there's that destruction of family and that destruction of that sacred union between man and woman. And then, like you said, the process is repeated because then that woman wants to have a child and she's going to go to the hospital so her child can be traumatized like she was, and then she's going to be traumatized like her mother was, where she's treated like a sick patient and she's confined to a bed and strapped to monitors and she can't move. And then she's told to lie on her back to give birth, but it's the doctor who delivered the baby, not her. Ladies, you delivered your baby. And then don't forget, there's maternity leave then, which, you hear the question, when are you coming back? Now, I wasn't asked that, when I left. They knew I was leaving. So I didn't have that. But I know a lot of women are asked, when are you coming back? Not, are you coming back? And then, under the Family and Medical Leave Act, you get, in the United States, you get up to 12 weeks of maternity leave where it's considered, you're considered sick. Okay, you're not sick when you're giving birth, okay? And it's considered a disability.
Right.
And you can enter, and then you're entered into that false debate about, look at countries like Sweden where their mothers get up to a year of maternity leave and it's paid. Well, why are you working anyway? And like you said, Mark, then the process is repeated and you send the baby to daycare and the baby turns 5 and then you send them to the indoctrination stations.
Right.
The process
part of the whole process of driving women into the workforce was to just cut off the feminine nurturing from the child. And the other part of it is, you could double the tax base and also basically create more internal competition within the workforce, and that drives down wage prices, and combine that with inflation, and you have the dollar's value going down, and you have competition over wages going up, and basically that's destroying the middle class. That combined attack is destroying the middle class, and it's leading to the type of depression, the type of financial depression that we're in, that's just demoralizing people all the more. They understood these forces. These forces are all actuaried out. When they went into this whole agenda, they knew what they were doing. This is a deliberate, constructed methodology, and it's a grand strategy, a chess strategy, and most people just aren't psychologically sophisticated enough to understand the chess strategy that's been played against them, how sophisticated of a maneuver this whole neo-feminism program is. It requires study, it requires reading, it requires, especially on a lot of the part of a lot of the females who have bought into this ideology, it requires the ability of them to, look introspectively inward at themselves and ask some of the tough questions about why they bought this type of an agenda, and couldn't see that it was an anti-life agenda in general. It wasn't about evening the playing field between men and women. It's about destroying society and ultimately destroying life in the long term.
But and I feel though there are solutions, and I do want to share them, specifically for the ladies of your audience.
Sure, go ahead.
Don't give birth in a hospital, first of all. Do a home birth. As you know, Mark, and Tim and I attempted a home birth with our children. Yes. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. But there's a war in midwifery, and if you look at the statistics, home birth is so much safer than a hospital birth. The United States is, supposed to be this industrialized first world nation, and it has one of the highest maternal and neonatal death rates.
Sure.
And then number 2, stay at home, love, nurture, and educate your children. Take them out of daycare. Take them out of this indoctrination station. And number 3, stop living beyond your means, and that's going to help you stay home. Because if people are, in a 2-parent household and they're both working, find a way for the father to work and the mother to stay home. That is her job. That's the most important job she can do. It's the most important job that I've ever done in my life, and it's also the most rewarding. I can never imagine going back to work. Maybe when my children are out of the house, but now I can't fathom that idea. I cannot. So people just have to stop living beyond their means. Don't buy the fancy cars. Maybe you only need one car. Downgrade the size of your house, like stuff like that. Stop living beyond your means. What is more important?
I mean, that's what a lot of people want to do. They want all these creature comforts, and they want to do that when really they're not making the kind of money that is conducive to that lifestyle. Then they go into debt, and then they're willing to do basically anything to keep a job, to pay off their loans that they have, or pay off the debt, or the expensive house, or the expensive car, the mortgage, etc., the car payments. And they let that determine their actions. They look at that as, well, I have to do this to maintain this lifestyle that I've decided I need to be living. And then the control over their actions follows that, because they'll do anything to maintain that lifestyle.
Well, can I add something?
Sure.
The satanic mind control that was conspicuous consumption and materialism in the West, it is right now, because of the internet and the reality that things do not fill the hole in your soul. I think materialism for a lot of people is getting its ass kicked. Well, what do you think?
I mean, I certainly think that there's a small percentage of people that realize that this certainly isn't the path to happiness, and they're starting to turn away from it. I think societally we're a long way from that happening, from that worm turning, but I think it can happen. I think there needs to be more of a spiritual renaissance happening within people, and understand that they have to get out of this me mentality. I think part of the first thing regarding that is to understand that the whole selfish lifestyle ideology is Satanism. If people don't understand that, and don't understand that largely the people of the world are living in a satanic culture already, because they are, in the aggregate, the people are already living in a satanic mindset. Most people don't understand that. They don't understand that because they don't know what Satanism is. They don't understand Satanism is essentially egoism. It's me-ism. Let's call it that. If you understand that that's what the ideology is, that is completely allowing the world to be manipulated and controlled, and that is no different than what these people in these, dark secret orders and secret societies refer to as Satanism, if they even ever refer to it as that. Again, some Satanists don't even call their belief system or their religion Satanism. They just call it the old religion. They call it the religion of the ego or the religion of the self. They just use Satan as an archetypal figure. Some of them could believe in demons and entities. I'm not discounting that happens within the realm of the occult. It does. Some of them believe that they call on forces and powers, etc. But I'm telling you, the overarching religion that they have to keep people in the mindset, in the ideology of, is egoism, is seeing the self as the most important thing above all else, regardless of what's right or wrong. And, my work is all about the importance of the self and understanding the nature of the self, what the true self really is, the authentic self. But that doesn't mean it's worship of the self or putting the self on a pedestal or seeing the self as the highest power in the universe. It's seeing the individuated aspect of the self and as being something that is connected with the higher self, that we have to make that bridge of connection in consciousness and understand we are part of something larger, and there are higher powers that ultimately have set up boundary conditions in this world that govern our behaviors, and that's what natural law is. And man didn't make those laws. This is all part of a wider understanding that has to open up for people to get out of the totally egocentric service to self mindset that they're in. Once we start transcending that mindset, it becomes easier and easier to see how we've been fooled and the agendas that have played a big role in this whole, in the orchestration of the creation of this whole worldwide control system. So I think what you're saying, Kelly, is some good solutions in that, we separate from the existing immoral system as much as is within our power to do so. At the same time, if we morally raise our children the right way by taking the time that needs to be invested in the minds of our youth and homeschool them and take them out of the government indoctrination camps, that's got to be a gigantic plus toward putting their mind on the right path at a young age during their formative years.
Well, I just hope that, some people will take that into account and really, sit with their partner at home and really talk about it. Our boy is only 11 months old right now, but
right.
I'm already talking about what we're going to do. So
sure, you have to start. You have to plan it early. That's a good frame of mind to be in for sure.
That's all I wanted to say. But Tim has a few words.
Absolutely.
Hey, what's up, Mark and Jay?
Hey, Tim. How you doing?
So, I just want to mention about this neo-feministic agenda that, it's not only an attack on the woman, but it's an attack on the male.
Sure.
It's the agenda to feminize the male. So the feminist agenda is to feminize the male and, masculinize the women.
Right.
I just wanted to mention some things about that. So in America and in the westernized world, fertility rates has been dropping, and our fertility rates are below the replacement rates now, which means that our population can't sustain itself on the current fertility rate.
That's right.
Our population is going to continue to decline based on the rates now. So everybody worried about overpopulation and all that, it's really a falsehood. And also the ethnic groups who moved here from other nations, they had higher fertility rates until they moved here. And then once they came here, their fertility rate continued to drop. They're a little bit higher than the Caucasian people, but, over time that it continues to drop. And nowadays we're hitting record lows with our fertility rates, and it's the in 2012 I got something here that says in 2012 fertility rates hit record lows, marking the 5th year in a row that U.S. birth rates have declined. So we're in this continuous decline, which leads me to what I like to cover a lot of, what I want to focus on because, I need to protect myself and my family. I cover a lot of the biowarfare chemicals and things that are used for eugenics against the people as population control. So what really comes down to this is what is called endocrine disruptors, and also known as hormone mimickers or xenoestrogens, and what I refer to them as as gender benders, because they're basically feminizing men and masculinizing women, so they're bending each gender towards each other in an androgynous way, where each person, the woman isn't really a woman anymore, and the man isn't really a man.
Right.
So these endocrine disruptors, they're things like plastics, and they're found in pesticides and chlorinated products, heavy metals, laundry detergents, and antibacterial soaps and shampoos, cosmetics, and liners in your food cans, and even pharmaceuticals like Prozac and birth control pills, and even soy, like baby formulas, soy-based formulas, and flame retardants, which they use in baby clothing. Even they spray pesticides for mosquito control, and these are used so mosquitoes can't reproduce. So all these things are affecting people's their hormones in certain ways, to where the men are basically making men, emasculating men, feminizing them. So there's a story in the a woman who I found her story. Her name is Vicky Blazer. And
Tim, hold on. I'll let you continue on the other side of this break. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening.
We don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. No dark sarcasm in the classroom. Teacher, leave them kids alone. Hey, teacher, leave them kids alone.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on RBN. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. Taking your calls for the duration of the show. The toll-free number to join us, 800-313-9443. We were talking to Tim in Philadelphia. Tim, you were talking about estrogen mimickers that are put into foods. You termed these gender benders because of how they kind of blur the distinction between the sexes and kind of try to, feminize men and masculinize women. And in so doing, they're kind of creating the beginnings of sort of an androgynous society, and that's why it's part of the agenda to put this into foods, because if that goes into people's systems, it's going to totally break down the classical gender roles, and that's going to break down strong men, which have traditionally acted as the protectors of the society, and therefore the state can come in and basically rule unchallenged, because there's not going to be any strong men in society anymore.
Yes,
Tim, are you still with us? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I'm here. Because these gender benders, nowadays, I really don't have any problems or hate for any people who are gay or any of their choices like that. But just more nowadays, I just see more and more people who kind of look at them and you're not even sure whether they're a male or female, because nowadays it's like more and more people. They either, it's just hard to tell. It's blurring the lines, and so
I see this myself out in society, and it's not saying treat these people with any kind of discrimination or anything like that. It's just a commentary on that this is being done in society, and it's being done for a specific purpose, a specific reason. It's not saying that these are bad individuals because they've undergone this process. It's saying that this process is part of the agenda to weaken our species in general, so that we cannot counter the tyranny that we're under. And this is part of just not only mental liberation from slavery, but when necessary, physical, forceful rebellion. Which is what they don't want. They don't want that to be a possibility. And part of what I'm going to talk about coming up is this fear of rebellion, this fear of revolution. It's a big mental block. Part of the topics I'm going to be covering coming up is I am going to go through gun ownership and the whole dichotomy between force and violence again, because I think it's so important to ingrain in people and help them to understand the self-defense principle. So, starting that, I think right here on the air next week, I'm going to give my Second Amendment presentation live on the air, in an extended format. And, I said we're going to be covering the occult history of Nazism, and the occult roots of Nazism as a religion, the dark occult roots. And then go back into some solutions about how to, work your way into people's influence through, the exploitation of certain familial dynamics and social dynamics that many people aren't even aware of. I'm going to try to make a point of that as kind of a new solution, so to speak, of how we can get out there and reach more people. But, this whole idea of not being able to physically wage any kind of acts of resistance. They want society. The controllers want society there. They don't want strong men capable of rebellion in society. They especially don't want strong, independently thinking, awakened men in society. And what they're using women in this neo-feminism agenda to do is keep men in a vulnerable state, keep them in a dependent state, keep them attached to the state, because the women are so attached to the state. And the men, they know that the men will generally follow the women's lead when it comes to what's going on culturally, what's going on societally. I mean, Hitler said this. He said, if you want the minds of the children, you have to get the minds of the women, because where the women go, the children and the men follow. They have been the traditional nurturers of society, those who have ingrained, moral fiber in the young.
The day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to What on Earth is Happening here on Republic Broadcasting. I'm your host, Mark Passio. My website, whatonearthishappening.com. I want to thank Tim and Kelly for their call in the previous segments. Really great job and good insights that they brought up. Let's hear from a couple other callers, and let's hear from Robert in California. Robert, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome.
We lost Robert.
Okay, we lost Robert.
There's a fresh preprint. Jose in Puerto Rico's up next.
Okay, no worries. Let's hear from Jose in Puerto Rico. Jose, you're live on What on Earth is Happening. Welcome. Jose, are you with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. There you are.
How are you, Mark?
Doing well. Yourself?
Man, I've been... How can I say this? I've been waking up on a lot of things, man. I basically have the same type of research you have. I've been doing this for many, many, many years, man. I've been awakened, but I'm so glad to see more people coming out. So happy, man. I wanted to tell you about some things that not many people are aware of.
Okay, go ahead.
Specifically Puerto Rico. This is a place, because I'm aware, and I've been around a few Freemasons. I got Freemasons friends. I'm also around a culture where they practice Santeria. Over here, it's African witchcraft. So I put the pieces of the puzzles together, and there's a large influence of Illuminati over here, brother. A large influence. The HARP facility, they use Arecibo. They chemtrail us every single day. It's, I know what's coming. Helicopters are passing over. Puerto Rico was basically the place where they experimented on first. And they used all these experiments once they realized that the music, the brainwashing, once they realized that it worked, they passed it on to the United States. Over here in the island, it's basically all brainwashing. The gang music, the gang violence, everything is totally, oh man, this is basically Illuminati Central, with the GMOs as well, the beers, Coors Light, all the things that they put in it. There's a lot of things people are not aware of, and I wanted to mention one thing that I figured out.
Sure.
I'm not going to, for the sake of my own safety, I'm not going to mention names, but I've been to the Freemasonic temples, and I have quite a large variety of acquaintances who are inside the Freemasonry. And one of them told me that there is a big satellite out in space staring at each and every one of us. They know what we're doing. They know everything.
I mean, their surveillance technologies are, advanced enough that, they have the kind of resolution that they could see, they could read the date off of a coin from space. So, of course, they could surveil everything that people are doing from space, and that's part of the whole agenda, is to get people thinking, well, we're constantly being watched, so we better watch what we do and not do anything against the state. It seems all powerful, but I think it's a fear tactic to try to keep people from real right action. And people say, well, aren't you worried about them listening or videotaping you or trying to somehow entrap you? Or I really don't care what people hear that I say. I mean, I don't try to encrypt any data coming in or out of my personal computer, because all anybody can do if they listen to what I'm saying is learn about what's really going on in the world. What the harm that I'm doing is in telling people the truth, I guess, in their eyes. So, I don't concern myself with, what they're doing and the type of propaganda and fear that they're trying to put out there. I just say, I'm going to stay steadfast and keep speaking the truth no matter what happens. And once you're in that kind of a mindset, in that kind of a mentality, I feel you create a level of protection around yourself from the universe itself, from creation itself, when you stand in the power of truth and under the power of natural law. As long as you know you're doing the right thing, that's what you have to keep doing.
Oh, and that's what I've been doing. I have a couple of bloggers that I've been spreading information on that, and I came upon your information. And I'm like, oh, here's another guy that knows a lot of what I know. I originally came upon the work of Roger Kent. Mm-hmm. He speaks about divine law, and he went through all this detail about contracts. He has a similar work that you did, only he goes deeper into contracts. I went more deeper into the psychological level, because I studied many things of psychology. I also noticed the rise of narcissism in the United States. If you go to Tumblr, you will notice all these teenagers that they're basically narcissists.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
it's a big part of it, is getting people into this totally egotistic, my needs are the only needs that I concern myself with during the course of any given day mindset, which is Satanism. People don't understand. If you're in that mindset, you are already a Satanist, whether you understand it or not. Whether you don't need to acknowledge that you're a Satanist. That's what people will say. Well, you're saying that other people are a Satanist when they themselves will not admit that they're Satanists. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm telling people who will never say the phrase, I am a Satanist, that in fact they are Satanists, whether they know it or not. You're a Satanist based on your actions. Okay, your actions, if your actions are satanic, by definition, you're a practicing Satanist. And I'm telling people what the main core ideological principle of Satanism is only focus on the self and don't care about what's going on with anybody else. If that is your mindset, you already are a Satanist, whether you understand that or not. It's the case. And by that very definition, we are living in a satanic culture, because that's how most people behave. That's how most people think and act. And so we're living in a satanic society already. The goal is to get out of the satanic mindset so we can break down the satanic society, which is a society based on violence and slavery.
And that's correct, man. And that's what I've been seeing in all these social networks. I've been observing people. I recently came upon this information, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Mm-hmm. Are you aware exactly as what these people worship?
I mean, in my estimation, what they worship is the ego itself. It's you could call it the archonic force, the force that wants to destroy life, the force that wants to have slavery, the force that never wants to admit to being wrong, the force that wants to be God and rule in a prison, if that's what it takes to be God here. That's the force that they quote-unquote worship, or I would just say they place that on a pedestal as something to be respected and aspired to. I personally wouldn't use the term worship when it comes to what the adherents to the old religion or to the religion of Satanism or dark Luciferianism believe in. To me, or at least in the circles that I was involved with, there wasn't really so much of a concept as worship as there was, these are the characteristics we wish to enshrine and propagate. And if you want to call that what they worship, I mean, that's fine. You could say, hey, they worship the ego, but it's kind of a little bit of a misnomer, because it's not like there's, rituals to that and saying, oh, this is what we must worship and acknowledge as our God. But, to a Satanist, to the type of Satanist I'm referring to, the ego is the God. The ego is God. And it's unchallenged, and it can never be wrong, and it's the thing that all my identity comes from, and it's where my personal worth grows out of, and it's all about getting more, and it's all about me at the expense of everybody and everything else, including freedom and right, and what is right. That doesn't enter into the picture to a Satanist. That's the mindset I used to be in my youth. It took me the better part of a couple of decades to crawl out of the morass of that type of a low frequency, low vibrational mindset, and get my head back together and reclaim my soul, And I'm telling you that comparatively, my case of the ego was a mild case compared to where other people, how deeply entrenched in it other people are. And I'm not talking about these elitists. I'm talking about your average Joe and Jane out on the street. They're entrenched in it 100 times, 1,000 times deeper than I ever was, and yet they don't know the first thing about this religion. Yet they're ensnared by it deeper than I ever was, and I can honestly say that I see that out there. So we need to develop a better understanding of what this ideology is ultimately really about, not what the Hollywood depictions of it are. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that things like as you might see depicted in Hollywood don't go on, because the man sitting in the room with me right now can tell you all about some of those things, and he has laid it out there on the table.
That's the other thing. That's called predetermined programming. Are you aware of that too?
Sure. Jay, I'm going to let you chime in on this since we're talking about Satanism and the dark occult. And, the gentleman's original question was, what do these people worship? In my experience, the ego was the central focal point of this religion. You've come from a different dark occult background from generational Satanism and the type of satanic ritual abuse that they use and put their children through. So I'll let you speak to that from your area of involvement with the dark occult.
Well, I just want to say, first off, thanks for a great call. And Puerto Rico has gone through just a huge amount of black bag stuff. Just unbelievable stuff. And to be an aware person living there must be a trip.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the things that I see the whole society. I've been awakened for many, many years. I just couldn't understand why people treated themselves this way. But the one thing that I wanted to point out to Mark, that I figured out what number 7 is. And number 7 is out in space. Literally out in space. If you looked at vector symbolism, you will notice that all those symbolisms resemble either a V shape or a pyramid type shape, or the Nike shape. That's one example. And the NASA logo, it has the V shape as well. What exactly are these people worshiping?
Well, many researchers have considered that is Saturnian symbolism, because the concept of Saturn as a god in the ancient religions is one of disciplinarian and control center, base vibratory energy and control-based consciousness, and that's what these people identify with. And so they kind of chose that as an archetypal symbol and use it a lot in their symbolism to basically direct people and influence them through archetypes.
Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. But there's actually a physical object out in space, literally, that looks like a wishbone. It was photographed off the astronaut's helmet. It actually shows, and it shows in other types of photographs. And in Mexico, 2002, it was seen in the sky, twirling around that same V-shaped object. If you also look at the movie Stargate, the pyramid shape in the eye is actually that. That's 7. And there are actually a few songs that talk about 7. And it's kind of resembling a little bit. It goes towards Lilith. And that's where the Neo-Feminism comes in narcissism. Oh, man, it just goes way deeper, brother. If you only knew the things that I knew as well. I witnessed so many things. There's UFOs over here as well. A large part of the population is so controlled. I don't even know how to begin over here. I'm basically cornered and imprisoned in a lab maze.
I think one of the best things to do is try to reach out to others, maybe through something like Meetup or something like that, or other social media, and try to get something going locally in your area, like maybe a documentary night, a Meetup group, a discussion group of some kind. When you create some kind of a community, I think that's where you can kind of really dynamically play off of each other's energy and build that, and that kind of builds confidence for people to speak the truth as well when they meet with a support group of some kind. That's really what we're talking about, is supporting each other in the hard times that we're in, to try to expose the truth and get this information out there to the general public so that it becomes widely known, and then we could start making headway and making progress and turning this thing around. So Jose, I definitely sympathize with you, being out in Puerto Rico and being around a lot of that negative energy. But I guess, you're intended to be one of the lights to try to, start something and get something going in that area. The idea here is, don't wait for orders from headquarters. Just get out there and do it. Do the best you can and do what you can. And I want to thank you for that call. Yeah, Jay.
Well, can I just say, as far as waking people up, start always with health issues and things pertaining to what you eat and stuff like that, to open their minds to the fact they need to learn more. And
Absolutely.
Then you can go from there.
That's great advice. I'm going to move on to another caller. Jose, thanks so much for the call. Robert from Canada, we lost him before. He called back in. Let's see if he's here now. Robert, are you with us?
California.
Hey, Mark.
Robert from California.
Hey. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah. Yes. How are you doing?
Great show. Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to make a couple of comments about last week's show, which was great.
Sure.
Yeah, no, there's a book and this paper that I found about online. You could probably search it, called "Gender and Sexuality in Nazi Germany." And this other one's by Milton Meyer. It's called "They Thought They Were Free." That's really excellent.
Great. So we're coming up to a break, folks. Hang on. I'll hold you over to the next segment. Welcome back, everyone. Final segment for this edition of What on Earth is Happening. We were talking to Robert in California, and Robert, you were talking about a couple of books that you recommended for people to check out. They Thought They Were Free.
Yeah, which is by Milton Meyer. There's a PDF online, but the other one's just a very short paper. It's only 3 or 4 pages.
And what was that one called?
Gender and Sexuality in Nazi Germany, and it really spells out what you were saying about the destruction of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine,
right?
To bring in a police state, and it really started happening like in the Weimar Republic back in the 20s,
Sure.
almost like analogous to the 60s here, where you had the destruction of morals, the destruction of the family. Single motherhood became like a badge of honor. It's actually the first time in world history that single motherhood was, not only was there no stigma, it was actually
encouraged.
And also
they were using women as breeding mares, basically, to create more, completely compliant youth that they could use as cannon fodder.
Right, more the order followers, factory, and not only that, men were. The value of men was that they're just to be sacrificed. To be masculine was to be a sacrifice, which is what we're.
Their only value lay in what they could do to keep the state alive and propagated. That's it.
Yeah, and you had welfare for single mothers, which kind of encourages it, and their marriage to the state, like you were talking about. So that
right.
So it's kind of been borne out by history. If we just look back. And I like what you were saying last week about the MRA movement. Because I checked it out, and I agree with you. It's just a reaction. It's just something to join, and it just exacerbates the whole thing.
I'm not saying that there aren't accurate analyses that are within some of that, because there are. However, it becomes reactionary when it simply tries to postulate that this is just human nature, and it does not take into account very specifically outlined, publicly acknowledged strategies of social engineering that have been known about and that have been out there and being employed in society for decades and decades and decades. And for somebody to just say, oh no, this is all just human nature and this is how it is and there's nothing we can really do about it except completely separate from it, I think is very divisive, and it's not going to lead to anything positive long term. I grasp it as an immediate response of a defensive response, and that's kind of what I think it is. It's almost like a biological reflex response, which is why it's spiked so big recently. But I think you're going to see a lot of these people wake up to higher levels of understanding as they study it more. This may have been one of their ins to the control system. And because they've been disenfranchised, you might say, in a certain way, a lot of these men, it's a big learning opportunity to understand mind control. It's a big learning opportunity to understand social engineering in our society, and how this is an example of what I call epi-eugenics. And we need to understand it very quickly, because it's having a big impact throughout the whole Western world. Great call. All the callers were great tonight, as they always are on the show. I want to thank Jay Parker from SRA Today for riding shotgun on this edition. That's all the time we have for this edition of What on Earth is Happening, folks. Remember, there's only 2 mistakes that one can make on the path to truth: not starting and not going all the way. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you right here next week. Good night, everyone.